Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. The topic today is Accelerating S/4HANA Readiness Assessment with KTern AI. My name is Mathangi, and I'm a project manager here at Terra Information Group, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, I want to mention a few housekeeping items. All participants will remain on mute during the session. If you have a question for our presenter, please type it in the question box in your participant panel. If we are unable to get to your question during the session, we will be sure to follow up afterwards. Today's presentation is being recorded. A link to the recording will be sent to all the registered attendees shortly after the session. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers today. Mamta Agarwal is Managing Partner at Terra Information Group. Randy Redenor is Senior Vice President of Sales at Terra Information Group. Ratna Kumar is the Founder and Director at KTern. And now I'll turn it over to Mamta to tell you a little bit about Terra Information Group. Mamta, over to you.
Thank you, Mathangi. Ratna, next slide, please. So just to tell you a little bit about who TIG is and what we do, TIG has been an SAP partner since 1997. So we have been in the SAP implementation delivery business for close to 25 years now. And TIG has been involved with about 250 to 300 implementations in different SAP domains, and S/4HANA being some of them. TIG has walked the path with SAP on this journey and been involved with several implementations of small, medium-sized, and very large businesses, bringing them from different platforms, legacy systems to S/4HANA. So we had one particular success story here. A leading logistics provider was moving from S/4HANA from an old AIX IBM system to S/4HANA to scale their business needs and improve on their efficiencies and streamlining their business processes and reducing time and cost, basically, and bringing more turnover and increasing their profits. And TIG was involved with this implementation, and some of the challenges we faced was again, migrating the client from an on-premise to a cloud migration. That was a huge change for the customer in terms of change management, infrastructure, and a lot of other resources, a lot of other factors too. Again, it was Oracle to HANA migration was, again, a complete overturn of technology and databases, different database structures. And also data consistency was an issue. So what does TIG do to encounter this? Again, a step-by-step implementation plan, both for hardware and DB migration. Again, we anticipated that this process is going to take more than anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks at the very minimum. And then TIG, was scratching their head and saying, hey, how can I improve this time? So 12 to 16 weeks is anywhere from 3 to 4 months. That's quite a bit. And, again, calculating the cost, effort, man hours was quite a bit for our client, who was a small to medium-sized company. Again, that's when TIG partnered with KTern and used the tool to model this migration process. And again, more than 50 to 60% of that manual work was automated, which saved us about minimum of 6 to 8 weeks of work. And again, imagine when we calculated the man hours and the cost, it was about 20–25% of the entire implementation cost. Migration of the custom code, again, that's a huge challenge for customers who are moving from on-premise to S/4HANA. Migration of the custom code, again, this process takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to just do the analysis of the custom code and detecting the loop, the gaps, and the effort and all of that. TIG used their custom code analyzer to reduce that time and we reduced about, in total, like including the coding time and all of that, calculated about 250 man hours in total. TIG always uses best process practices and to all of our customers. And also simplified UI design by Fiori apps, reduce the efficiency of the business processes for the customer by 25%. Next slide. Again, I might be repeating myself on the slide, so I'll just keep it extremely short. Again, TIG has been involved with S/4HANA migrations for more than 20 years. We are a trusted cloud advisor. We are not a vendor. We want to be your partner, walking the steps with you, holding your hand and making sure that you get the best value out of this product. Again, we can be a single vendor for all of your, for taking a SAP environment to the cloud, like right from implementation, support, training, upgrades, whatever it might be. Even interacting with SAP for license purchases, anything that you need, we can be a one-stop shop for that. Right? Next slide. Just to give you a quick peek into, how do we do this so efficiently, is because of our great talent that we have here, great resources. All of our practice team, S/4HANA practice team, is at least all of them are certified and have a minimum of 5+ to 6.5 years of experience, an average of 6.5 years. So this is basically a list of sample list of all the skill set that we carry within this practice team. All right, next slide. And we'll be getting into the details of what KTern is and how it can optimize and increase your implementation time and reduce your cost. So just so that you get a taste of what this might be, we are offering a promotional offer, until the 24th of July, to where you can avail of a trial version of the license. Right? Next slide. And here I'll turn it over to Ratna to give you some details on what the product is, and he'll also be giving you a demo.
All right, thanks, Mamta. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Ratna, and I'm the founder and director of KTern. The platform KTern itself, it's for a digital transformation as a service. That's what we call it as, because SAP digital transformation cannot be a one-time event. So we make it a continuous process to ensure that you move from your existing ECC to S/4HANA, and then continuously optimize the process in terms of efficiency and how to improve and get the best of the S/4HANA implementation. Now, I will take 5 to 7 minutes on setting the context, and then straight away jump into the demo. So the whole platform, if you really look at it, we start with something called digital maps. It has got 5 streams: digital maps, projects, process, labs, and minds. And we have the methodology called DX. Here is digital transformation. That's a new thing that's happening in the world of SAP, along with Rise with SAP, and how SAP is taking the new platform to the customers. So you basically start with a phase 0 or a discover phase, where you try and understand what is there in your existing system. So we use digital maps to scan your existing ECC, or it could be your CRM, SRM, find out what is there, because typically you find customers where ECC has been running for the last 10-15 years, and how do you go about moving to the new world of S/4HANA, and what are the things that we should be doing in terms of the business processes, the technical components, which could be your ABAP objects. What do you do with that? How do you do you make a move to the cloud? What are the different methodology? Is it a do we do a conversion from the existing assets to a new world, or do we do a selective data transformation, or do we do a greenfield implementation, leaving the existing ECC as a legacy? All that can be done in phase 0. Typically, if you look at it with the platform itself, you would be able to drive it in, depending upon the size of data you have, you should be able to do it in 4 to 6 weeks, or even lesser. But if you have to do it manually, it might take a longer time. The whole report and what is there available in the system can be done in a week's time. And then you move to digital projects where you govern all your SAP projects, be it S4HANA, SF, Ariba, Fieldglass, it doesn't matter. Any SAP project, it's made specifically for SAP, and you can have it as a hybrid workplace where you have all the stakeholders, be it consultants from TIG or from the customer side, collaborate and drive the project from one place. That's digital projects. And then process. This is a complete mapping of your existing processes and what your to-be processes should be when you move to the new S4HANA, and how that works in terms of driving your existing processes. And then you have labs, which is your testing tool, which is part of the platform itself, where you can drive the complete testing in terms of moving to S4HANA. And digital minds kicks in during the run mode, where you can optimize the existing processes. Now, all this works for the SAP customers, system integrators, SAP partners, along with our KTern.ai bots. Right. So this whole thing is a platform itself, and there are a few engines that drives it. One is the S4HANA PDR. It's an auto learning knowledge base engine which can drive the consultants and the subject matter experts from the customer side in terms of driving the project. And then the business criticality. What are the processes that we should be testing when we move to the new world? What should we deprecate the older process? Should we look for the new way of designing the processes when you move to S4HANA? So that's done by value, volume, and velocity, which is something we call as a VVV engine. In short, it's about the business criticality, and I'll show that in a few minutes. And then you have the complete project can be a guided one using the Activate template, and basically SAP has its own Activate methodology, or you could import your own methodology and drive it accordingly. And then you have a process model orchestrator, which is a scope item catalog, which is the erstwhile BPML. If you understand the ASAP methodology, now it's Activate methodology. And all this happens at a cognitive, in a very, very cognitive way, meaning the platform is connected to the SAP system and it connects the people, process, and tools. So all that can happen at one place, and it can be driven remotely or in a hybrid way. And you have workflows in terms of approvals and how you want to drive this whole transformation. Because the worst fear is what would happen to my existing data and how will my new world look like. That's all possible using this KTern platform. And these are the different phases that I mentioned already. So this assess and plan could be your phase 0 or the discover mode, where digital maps kicks in, and that's what the demo I'm going to show today. And then we have other streams, which is projects, process, labs, and minds, which probably will do in the future webinar, but I'll touch upon it and what it does. It has its own custom process adaptation as well. And then you could do continuous testing. We have a UI-based testing as well as a API-based testing, and then you could do, when you are in the run mode in S4HANA, you can optimize on your business process with a digital twin that you can build and assess the process that we have. So there are quite a lot of customers who've been using it. It's been certified by SAP. It's available as part of the SAP store. If you could Google that, you will find that as well. And basically, these are the metrics where we are talking about the transformations that could reduce the overall cost, increase productivity, and also the custom process adaptation, because there's quite a lot of investment the customers have done in the last 10, 15, 20 years in terms of customizing quite a lot. And what do we do with that? How do we adapt to the new world? And what are the remediation ways to do it? All that is possible as part of this platform. And then continuous automated testing, where we use a user interface as well as an API-based automated testing. And that reduces significant time in terms of moving to S4HANA. And automated change impact analysis kicks in during the run mode, where if you move to S4HANA cloud multi-tenant, there are quarterly drops that happens from SAP, and you might have to. So if you have like 200 test cases, you don't have to run all the 200 test cases, or you might have to run only the impacted test cases. So in case of on-premise, if you move to an on-premise version or a cloud, you still have to, I mean, it could be deployed on a cloud, but it's still an on-premise version. That there are early drops that happens, which SAP calls as continuous innovation. You still have to do the testing. So and SAP recommends to upgrade every 2 years. So in that sense, you might want to ensure that you're testing only the impacted processes. That's what the automated change impact analysis is all about. Again, as I mentioned, it's available as part of SAP Store. It's certified by SAP. It's we also have our reviews in the G2, which is a peer review website. It's also available as part of qualified partner package solution used by SAP partners across the globe. These are some data points on the amount of data or the quantum of data that we have analyzed, and how it's a AI-propelled self-learning engine in terms of providing knowledge base for your continuous transformations. These are different use cases that you can use this product for. Of course, starting with the digital transformation, S4HANA transition planning, greenfield conversion, selective data transformation, change impact analysis, continuous SAP testing. So you could start anywhere and use it as a complete product lifecycle management in terms of driving your SAP transformation. And these are a few of the customers and partners. And this is a digital footprint of our partners and customers. So let me get into the demo. Now, yeah, I mean, KTern.com, you see the website, but let me go into the demo here straight away. So you have a, yeah, I'll just give a few minutes for the screen to load. And yeah, so you have a trial app that you could use it, or you could view a demo. I'm going to click on the demo part. And yeah, so it's going to launch something called a project launchpad. Here you could drive any number of projects. So if you're a SAP customer, and I assume you're a SAP customer, and that's why you're in this webinar. So you might be driving more projects throughout the year. So you could configure any number of projects. This is a demo version, so I'm just showing one project. But typically you would configure like 10, 20 projects here. And this is a S4HANA transformation, and by one of the partners. So I'm going to launch this project and show you how it looks like. It's a SaaS product. It's available on the cloud, and you just have to subscribe for it, and you can start using it. Of course, with Terra, we would be able to have it work for you as well in terms of driving the SAP transformation. I mentioned about the workspace. So typically when you drive a huge transformation and you want to have multiple stakeholders aligned at one place so that you could drive the project in a better way, you have a workspace, and this is personalized for each of the consultants or the users or the subject matter experts or the CIO in terms of driving the project. Typically, it would come to a task, and they can schedule their day in terms of driving the complete project, right? But before getting into all that, let me just show you how we do an assessment, and that's the idea of this. I just want to check with Mamta or someone if my screen is visible and all that is okay. Matangi, just
Yes, it
quick.
is visible. I can see the KTern My Workspace screen. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, and so once you launch this, there's something called digital maps. Of course, I spoke about the 5 streams, and if you look at it, these are the 5 streams. It talks about digital maps, and then the projects where you can drive the complete SAP project. Labs is about the testing of the processes, which is integrated with the platform itself, and then cataloging the process. I mean, if you talk to any CIO and ask them the number of processes that's configured in SAP or how their whole business is run, they might be able to respond in a high level. But if you want to drill it down and find out the most critical process and the users connected with it, that's where digital process comes into play. And then digital minds is more of a digital twin builder where you could optimize the existing processes in terms of how it's been configured. So assuming we get into a customer, we engage with the customer. The first thing that we do is, and we are talking about a move from ECC any version, EHP any version, to S/4HANA 2020 or 2020-1. The latest one is 2020. And if you're looking at an on-premise or a multi-tenant cloud or a single tenant, it doesn't matter. But we need to understand what is there. So any project would start with the discover mode, where you might want to do an assessment of what is there and do a business case to a CIO or for the budget allocation. And that's where we talk about the auto assessment insights. Now, before we do that, how do we connect? There's something called landscape management, where you could connect in a very non-invasive way, meaning you don't have to put any probes on the SAP ECC or the ABAP stack. It could be a dual stack or Java stack that you have. It doesn't matter. But you just have to download a connector, connect it, and you just connect to an SAP system like how you would connect an SAP GUI, and then start the scan. Once the scan is done, it might typically take 2 days to a week's time, depending upon the size and the number of customizations that you have. And this is the report, or this is what comes out of it. This is for 1909, but you could drive it for 2020 as well. So let me start with a landscape assessment. So what you get, once you run the scan, what you get is you get a complete information about the system. This is more about the system, the kind of OS that is running, and the database, and what it should be. And the icon that you see here, that would basically prompt you with more details about the particular system, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And then it also provides a list of users, because as part of this move, you might want to optimize on the active and inactive users. And if you want to bring down on your license cost, you might want to do that as well. And the user license that could be optimized as part of this move. And then complete, this is more of the technical information, the add-on analytics, archiving recommendations on what you should leave behind, because your system has been running for 10, 15 years. What do you do with that data? You don't want to have a huge data footprint when you move to the cloud, for example. But if it's on-premise, it's still okay. But if it's on the cloud, you might want to reduce your data footprint, and those are the recommendations that's given as part of this analysis. Now I'll come back to this in a second. The most important aspect of this whole thing is the process assessment. Now, why this is important? If you really look at it, what it does is it basically does an analysis, a materiality analysis, in terms of trying to understand the business criticality of the processes that has been configured. And of course, you must be familiar with all this financial MM and the different modules and how it's been configured. So what it essentially says is that FICO and MM or quite extensively used in the current application. And then PP comes third, and then the rest of the modules in the current system. Now you could click on this rocket icon or the icon that you see here, and it would give you a complete details of the number of prominent modules, the one with the high or the business criticality, and what do you do with that. Of course, this is a demo system, but basically what it does is across each modules at the transaction level, it would give the name of the users who have been using it extensively, and this would help us in terms of driving a plan in terms of how what are the different things that I should be doing, how should I be planning it, because your key user might be involved in running the operations, but you still want one of these users here who are ranked based on the usage of this particular T code and to be involved as part of this project, right? So we do that material analysis to the details, and the best part is it's not a static report. You could select and create a task or an event, call for a meeting, and record all that and drive your transformation. That's the whole idea of this platform. And then it also does a complexity analysis. For example, do we need to move to the new GL before you move to S4HANA, or can we make it as part of the S4HANA move itself? Those were the critical decisions that you might want to take, and the platform can prompt you in terms of doing a dual approach, or can we move it one step at a time and then ensure that the business is not disrupted. Same thing with the SPL or material ledger or your asset accounting, business partner, something new in S4HANA. The master data that's present in ECC is slightly, and as compared to S4HANA, is different, and how it's stored is different. So there's a change at all levels. There's a change at the user experience level. There's a change at the API level. There's a change at the data layer. And how do you ensure that the data is moved without much disruption to the existing system, right? So that's what you get as part of the process assessment. But yeah, if I drill it down further, it also talks about the different lines of business and the users. The stakeholders here is nothing but the list of users, the top 5 users or the 10 users across the different, last level of process, if I can talk about it, because we generally term it as L1 to L6. So if you really look at it, L6 is the process activity or the process steps as part of the scope items or the BPML that SAP calls, and how are they configured currently, right? So that's the kind of information. And we also do a complete process discovery, right? You don't have to really have a set of 4 SMEs explaining you the process. We kind of scan the system, use your log files, use your the metadata and the config files, and try and map how a particular process is mapped. For example, if you take the procurement department, and if you click on it, of course those widgets can be configured for the documents. End of the day, SAP is system of record, so it could be on the number of documents, or you could peg a dollar value as well, and give a graphical view of how currently your procurement department is configured, and what are the different levels that you've maintained in terms of the different company code, the purchasing organization, how you have segmented your purchasing group, the number of plants that you have, and which one you should be focused on, which is the one that you should look at, is the kind of information that's provided here. And you can keep extending it and see how it's configured, and what are the different set of storage locations, and the number of documents present. Now, why this is very important in terms of your phase 0 is you get a complete view and a complete process discovery done across all your modules, be it procurement, be it your sales organization, your plant maintenance documents, or your billing documents. This is the number of documents that has been generated in your legacy, and the legacy here I call it as ECC. But then what do you do with that? How many are open items? What is that I can leave behind, and what is that I should be moving? And how does it fit into the S4HANA? Those are the kind of decisions that you might have to take. And typically without a tool, it can run for 3 to 4 months, just the discovery alone. But here with this platform, you can drive it real fast. It's configurable, and it also provides different, and of course, this is the simplification items. For example, the system that we scanned recently, and if you have to compare it with what has changed in the new S4HANA, it would give you the simplification is nothing but the changes that has happened when you compare it with ECC to S4HANA and across what modules. So it gets into those level of detail. It gives a high level view, and then you can drill it down to the lowest level and then find, what has changed, what is the functionality that has changed, what is the new functionality that's available, and if there is a functionality that's unavailable or not available, what do you do with that? How do you do the workaround? And then the reference SAP notes for the consultants and the customer side to experience. So all that is available, and of course you could create your set of workflow and collaborate with the with your team and drive it forward, right? So yeah, so this is and this is configurable. As I said, you could add more process discovery widgets here. And then it also provides a training scenario, right? So I have a set of 500 users. The way that they are going to drive the business is going to change. So who are the impacted users? Who should be trained for this new user experience called Fury? And what are the training modules that they should be attending? And how do we manage the complete change management? And this is about if you have industry-specific add-ons or in your SAP, then what do you do with that? Because there are a few things that SAP has left behind, and a new way of doing business in terms of chemicals or petrochemicals, whatever industry you might be. So that's possible as part of this. So this is the process assessment that I spoke. It talks about a business transformation, landscape, custom object assessment, BW, and then it also provides a timeline assessment. So we spoke about the process. This is more of your assess scenario. The next part would be your custom object assessment, right? I mean, if typically what we have seen at the customer places, there is quite a lot of investment that's driven towards customization because SAP has evolved quite a lot in the last 20 years in terms of their product, and there are releases happening. So, but prior to that, there could have been, there are some standard modules that's available, the standard reports that's available, but sometimes you find customers who have, customized most of their reports. So what do we do with those custom objects? And so we provide a complete information of the top 10 custom objects. Of course, this icon that you see here would have a detailed view of how these objects are present, the significant report transactions. What do we do with the reports that you're using? Will it work when I move to S4HANA, or do I need to do some changes? And how long does it take? What are the objects that might not work if I don't remediate? Should I remediate everything? Can I leave behind and use some standard reports that's available as part of S4HANA? So all that information, which is quite critical in terms of making your move, comes as part of the custom object assessment. And it's just not custom object assessment. As part of the process, we have a complete remediation or recommendation for remediation that we provide as part of this platform. So if you look at it, it talks about the enhancements, the module with the highest enhancement, the total number of modifications, and how many objects are impacted, and what are the objects with high impact cases. When we say high, so out of your total, 1,000, you might want to just remediate or look at only around 250 objects, for example. You don't have to really worry about things with low impact cases, medium to a certain extent. So we provide that kind of a detail by scanning each of the custom objects and let you know how. So you don't have to spend fixing all this. You can just fix and move, and you can still be working, because the cutover activity and when you move from old system new system, you get a very less downtime. So we also try and understand what is the downtime that's available for the business, and accordingly do the remediation as well, and then the testing of these objects when it moves to. So these are the impacted cases. You could have multiple impact cases as part of the particular object, and this is of course at the high level, but you could drill it down and look at most of the information here in terms of the analysis itself and each of the objects. So we get it to the object level, the kind of enhancement type, and who the users who have been using it, and when was it last changed last, and then you could start from here and do the remediation as well as part of the digital process, which I'll come back in a few minutes. But yeah, the whole idea is you get most of the information here across which modules these objects are present. Is it present as part of sales and distribution or cross-application components? And then, of course, a graphical view of the impact analysis. So if you look at the count, and we even go at the object level, and what is the changes that needs to be done as part of it is provided during the initial phase itself. So you have an idea of how and what should be fixed when you move to S4HANA. And of course, with this move, you're moving from a RDBMS to a columnar database, which is HANA database. So you might have to do quite a lot of changes in terms of optimizing your existing queries, right? So all that is provided as part of this custom code analysis. Again, the high impact cases in terms of the different data types, the dictionary, the table, the field length extensions, and what do you do with that, high optimization cases. So if you look at this one, the graphical view, you would see that search DB operations in loops across different modules. Now, this is a typical one that the ABAPers would have used in the ECC world, but that has to be fixed before you move to the next one. So we have seen few customers who would optimize as a first step, and then they might go for a new implementation or a new S4HANA move. And these are the different users who have been using these programs. So you might want to have them as part of this transformation. And then we also provide the top SAP reference notes for different objects and what it says, so that you could take a look at it. So this is a complete analysis of the custom objects. Similarly, I was talking about, so I spoke about the processes, which is important. Assets. I spoke about the custom objects. As I mentioned earlier, you could drill it down and go to the nth level in terms of understanding what are the different things that's available, and it would make more sense in terms of driving this project, right? So that's the kind of details that we get into. And then, of course, I was talking about the landscape assessment. I started here, but if you really look at it, there are lots of customers who would have some add-ons, could be a Vistex or any other business add-ons that is there. And what happens to that? What would be the what would be the methodology to move it? Is it compatible to S4HANA, or do we need to check with the vendor and replace it, or is it backward compatible with S4HANA? Those are the things that's provided as part of add-on analytics. And then the interface review. So none of the project SAP projects it's without an interface. You would have quite a lot of interfaces, and so we provide a complete scan. All this is just connecting to your SAP system and getting you all this information, right? So and that saves lots of time before we even talk to any of your business users in terms of driving the SAP project, right? So we spoke about process assets, we spoke about the landscape, we also spoke about the custom objects. The best part of this platform itself is, as I mentioned, we have something called S4HANA PDI engine, which is a knowledge base engine. We have close to 25 industry verticals or industry maps that could be compared And this particular example is for aerospace and defense. It could be for a chemical or a petrochemical, oil and gas. It could be for automotive industries. This map provides the best practices that's available as part of the assert library that we have. And it would scan and say the number of users whose experience would be transformed when you move to this S4HANA. And it also gives a scoring in terms of the process that can get transformed. So, so for example, the process improvement that you're looking at here across different models, of course, the naming here could be different for different customers. I'm sorry, I'm hearing an echo, but I'll continue. So this is a catalog view where across the different LOB, finance, or it could be your R&D, or quality, or supply chain. What are the different processes that's available as part of this particular process? And we go to the process details as part of this view. Let me go here. So what we are essentially saying is, if you look at the asset management, and if you drill it down to the emergency maintenance, these are the different users who have been using this, and the equivalent Fiori app. So there is an automated engine that helps you in terms of telling you what are the and Fiori app is the new user experience, and how your existing SAP GUI screen would be replaced with the new Fiori apps, and the roles that can get impacted. And this is something that you should be taking as part of the new implementation. So that's the kind of detail that the platform can provide without talking to any of the business users. And then you can drive any of the workshops or discussion with so as part of the activate methodology, there's something called fit gap analysis that we do. Earlier it used to be slightly different, because activate prescribes both both a waterfall and an agile way of doing SAP projects, where you take the best practices, as Mamta mentioned, and try and see what are the gaps, and you try and see how the gaps can be fulfilled. So if I go to the process view, for example, and take up say sales and say credit memo processing, what it would provide me is, it would give, when you move to S4HANA, the kind of process improvements that you can do for this particular process with a score saying that that's very important in your company, because you might have like 500 processes, but the top 100 process something that we define, or the platform itself is able to tell you based on the number of documents that has been generated, the velocity the speed at which it has been generated, and the number of users using it. So based on that, we would provide you that information. And this is basically the best practices in terms of how a process should be mapped, and currently how the process is mapped. And you could always extend this as part of your process. So whatever has been configured in your SAP system and how it is currently can be extended is what we provide here, right? That's cool, right? I mean, there's not many product which does that. And the users who would be using this process, the best part is it's just not the to-be process that we map. We also tell you what are the Fiori apps that's required for credit memo processing, for example, and what are the different recommended Fiori apps that you might want to choose for your transformation. So similarly, it can cut across all the line of business that you might have, and it could provide most of the information for you in terms of how you want to drive the experience, right? So this is something cool in the sense it gives the best practices KPI. You could also add a KPI for this process, and that comes as part of the different thing that we have. So as part of the digital maps, you have business transformation. So we have like 25 industry vertical maps that could be juxtaposed with the existing process and provide you with what process is right for you to move to the new world, the technical part of the landscape, what servers and what are the database and what you should do about it, the processes, the custom object, the data footprint that you want to leave behind, and what we want to take forward. If you have more, I'm sure you'll have a BW or CRM, it could be anything. So an analysis of that as well. This is a demo system that you should be able to go and take a look at it. And then also provide an indicative timeline and the kind of consultants that would be required. So it helps you to kind of plan on how you want to move and things like that, right? So right, so I have another 15 minutes, but maybe I'll just touch upon. So I spoke about the workspace. Maybe I'll take another 2 minutes, and then maybe we can go to the questions. Right. So I spoke about the workspace where you can collaborate. You have a complete, you know, the project can be handled using the platform. You have a way to handle your complete project. All this is, driven here in terms of how the timeline. We have a project methodology map that could be imported here, the task, and this is the collaboration part of it. And then you have maps, which we spoke about it today. As part of the next webinar, we probably would cover the other streams in terms of the process cataloging, how do you go about doing the custom code remediation, the labs, which takes care of the testing, because you need to do continuous testing as you move from one world to another world, and how do we ensure that the assets are maintained? How do you do the planning? So you have a complete dashboard in terms of driving your testing as well. And then the digital minds in terms of continuous optimization or continuous run mode, where you do a change impact analysis of different things. So yeah, so that's it from my side. We can take up any questions. Over to you, Madhavi.
Thank you so much, Ratna, for that very detailed webinar so far. I'm not seeing any questions from attendees at this point. So attendees, if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to type it in the question window, and we will go over them one by one. Meanwhile, I will ask you some of the frequently asked questions. The first one being, is KTern qualified by SAP?
Yes, it is qualified by SAP. So if you go to SAP Store, which SAP kind of sells everything these days, and if you look at it, it is completely listed here. And if you have to get it listed, you have to go through a very stringent process of certifying it. So it's available as part of the SAP Store, and there is a continuous audit in terms of how we drive these projects. But yeah, and we have to renew it every year, and so yeah, the short answer is yes.
Thank you. That is great to know. The second question I have is, how long does it take for KTern to come up with the assessment results?
It would take anywhere from, if we get through the initial setup in terms of the VPN connection and things like that, it could range anywhere from 2 days to a week's time. That's the kind of time it takes. And if you really look at it, except for the custom code, and depending upon the size you have, the data size, it might run for a week's time, but typically we can do it in 2 to 5 days time. And this is a set of report that could also be presented to you to take a call with your board in terms of making a decision to move or not. So yeah.
Okay, great. The next question that is frequently asked is, does KTern assessment consider only a lift and shift model of conversion?
Not really. It could be. I mean, typically, if you look at it, they call it a brownfield conversion, which is lift and shift access movement of data from ECC to S4HANA, and then you have a greenfield implementation where you consider the existing ECC legacy. And the third one is selective data transformation. Of course, for selective data transformation, there are few partners globally along with SAP, but all these three methodology, you could take up anything and still use the platform to drive these transformations. So it's just not for the lift and shift. And also the platform has evolved where it's just not for S4 HANA, but anything under the SAP can be used, be it a SuccessFactors, Ariba, Fieldglass, CRM, it doesn't matter. So the whole overall idea is to ensure that the digital transformation can happen in a continuous way, and you could connect to any of the cloud system or an on-premise system. So whatever approach Terra along with the customer takes, we should be able to support them.
Okay, great. We do have a question from one of the attendees at this time. It is, could this analysis tool be used for both S4 solutions on-premise and in cloud?
Well, typically the analysis would be for ECC, but if you have a 17.0x version or a recent version of SAP, that is also possible to analyze that. So the deployment doesn't matter if it's on the cloud or if it's on premise, it doesn't matter. We should be able to do an assessment for any kind of deployment.
Okay, and there's a follow-up question, and which is the main benefit compared this analysis with the SAP process discovery summary?
Can you repeat that, Madhuri? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's very clear to me as well. I believe what they're asking is, what is the main benefit when compared, when you use your product versus the SAP process discovery summary? Is that somewhat clear? Sorry, the user who posed this question, if you wouldn't mind clarifying.
Listen, there are accelerators and tools provided by SAP, and the way we approach and it would augment or it would do more specific in terms of your landscape. So there's quite a lot in terms of the data that we provide using this platform, which you'll be able to understand once you start using it. But there's quite a lot. It can talk at a 40 feet height. It can also talk at a few inches level in terms of the depth and details that it can go. And plus the to-be process that I spoke about is not something that any of the provider does because of the industry maps that we have. So that's something new. And there are quite a lot that we do in terms of the process assessment as well. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So there's another question from another attendee. This one says, how is this process assessment offered by KTern different from SAP's BSR, Business Scenario Recommendations?
Right. Vinith, do you want to take that question, Vinith?
Yes, Ratna, yeah. Let me take it up, please. And yeah, thanks for that question as well. So with regard to the tool, the BSR offered by SAP and what KTern offers in terms of the process assessment. So KTern doesn't stop at the process step level if you can look at it. So it does the material analysis, giving insights about the process as well as the stakeholders. And in addition, it does an in-depth analysis in terms of the master configuration as well as the transaction data, which Ratna showed in the form of the enterprise structure mining as well, from the different entities across the different lines of business, from a PTP process, the order-based processes, the sales processes, and the financial-based ones as well. So you have an in-depth analysis covering up the master-based data, the configuration data, as well as the transaction data, which spans across the complete legal entities. And this actually helps primarily in terms of the testing, the training, and what is being critically used as well. So these kind of insights, I mean, we believe KTern is the only tool that offers across the globe as well. And yeah, appreciate your question and time as well. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, thank you, Ratna, as well.
Thanks, Vinith.
Thank you. I have one last question I can ask because we have about 5 minutes left. This one says, after MAPS assessment results are generated by KTern, what should be the client's next step with KTern?
Right. So once you do the assessment, the next step would be to and if you have the budget and everything, you give Randy a call or Mamta a call, and we would be able to walk you through on how to go about the complete transformation in terms of driving the project. The idea is, of course, you have to have a report, do some budgeting exercise, and then do some scheduling, planning in terms of what you want to get done before you start. So all that information is here. And then the approach, the kind of downtime that you can have. So these are the things that we need to discuss. Of course, that can be driven by our team. And then, I mean, you get ready for the transformation, basically. So, yeah. I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, that would be the next logical step.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to type it in the question window at this time. Otherwise, we will wrap up the webinar, and feel free to follow TIG on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and reach out to Randy or Mamta if you have any questions or comments about this webinar. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.